Seth Ferranti here, your guide through the dark corners of the criminal underworld. As an outlaw filmmaker, author, and journalist, I've delved deep into the minds of gangsters, drug lords, and prison gangs. But my journey doesn't stop there. Let me take you on a thrilling ride as we explore the hidden stories and untold truths that lurk behind the prison walls.
The Colombo Wars set the stage for uncertainty, something the families had never seen. Even after the war, the crews weren't separated. They were shylocking in the same neighborhoods. These guys had clubs together. Then in between the war, they had to hide because they were shooting at each other because of the beef. You know, they were hitting the mattresses. They knew how to run the streets in their favor, but they weren't prepared for this type of unrest. You know, war, internal war causes all types of crazy stuff and makes it so, you know, stuff just can't run. You can't get money.
Persico's rep for being merciless in his mob affairs goes all the way back to the first Colombo family war of the 1960s, where he earned his alternate nickname, the Snake, for his treachery, relates Scott Bernstein, the author of Mafia Prince, Inside America's Most Violent Crime Family and the Bloody Fall of La Cosa Nostra. Historically, Carmine and Crazy Joe Gallo came up in the streets together. They were very close and in the same crew at one time. What happened was that Gallo and his brothers wanted to pull away from the Profazzis because they didn't like the leadership. They didn't think Joe Profacci was a good boss. They accused Profacci of stiffing the rank and file from a fair share of the family profits. The Gallo brothers were renegades, and when they were plotting and trying to get the other captains to go on their side to make this move to break away, Persico was with them. At one point, Profacci got to Carmine and offered him something lucrative. Persico invited Larry Gallo to a meeting, and Larry, not knowing that Carmine already went back with Joe Profacci, went to see him. When he arrived, Persico tried to kill Larry. Carmine's old running partner, Larry, would have been dead that day in 1961 at the Sahara Lounge in Brooklyn if a beat cop hadn't wandered in, wondering why the door was open on a Sunday morning. After the attempted hit, Persico was dubbed the Snake for switching sides during the internal mob war, which came to be known as the First Colombo War. In the Mafia, treachery is rewarded. Friends kill friends to become the top dog. Frank Punchy Iliano, a Genovese capo, was the one who gave Persico his infamous moniker. Carmine was going to court with his guys as Punchy was coming out. They had a confrontation, and Punchy told Persico, "You're a fucking snake."
They had to figure out what to do. Who's taking the club? Who's not taking the club? Who's taking the numbers? That's why it was such a big headache. It wasn't just one gang fighting another gang. It was an internal battle. After the shooting stopped, everybody had to go back together again. That was the way it worked in the Mafia.
After Profacci, Joe Colombo took over. He made peace in 1964 with the Gallo brothers. At the time, Persico was in jail for another short bid. Joe Colombo was the boss between 1964 and 1972, and Carmine Persico was a skipper. His crew was very strong. They ran all of one side of South Brooklyn, and even intermingled with the Gallos at the time. The Gallos were part of the Profacci family, which then turned into Colombos. Even after the war, the crews weren't separated. They were shylocking in the same neighborhood. These guys, before the shooting started, had clubs together. Then in between the war, they had to hide because they were shooting at each other because of the beef. After the shooting stopped, everybody had to go back together again. When Joe Colombo got shot, Carmine was the front runner. He was in line to take over. That's why he became acting boss at the time until the commission okayed it. That's how Carmine got that position. He was in jail and had to leave Joseph Joe Iacovelli, who was under him, in charge. Crazy Joe Gallo was doing his own bid, and when he got out in 1971, Persico put an open hit order on him, igniting the Second Colombo War. A Gallo member was ultimately blamed for the Joe Colombo shooting, but an open hit is an open hit. It means anybody can take the shot. There was no love loss. When Joey was executed, the Persicos became kings of the Colombo Hill.
Yeah, well, this was a place where Crazy Joe Gallo, this is where he was killed. Yeah, I guess he was sitting down, I think he was sitting down with a few people. They came in, they shot him and left.
Carmine loved wartime. He was always on the winning side, even when the snake had to stab his so-called friends in the back to do it.